always want to be one of those types that is a meal planner, but I'm not. And on this particular day, we had something in the afternoon, so I knew I had to do a little bit of planning and make something that was really quick and easy in the evening. So I started by having a loaf of bread dough that I actually had in the fridge because I meant to bake it the night before and just ran out of time. And so I thought to myself, hey, I will make some Italian beef. I've been making this over and over again. It's really one of my favorite recipes, and it just reminds me of my childhood. And I love it, and it takes like 5 minutes to make. And this time I was going to make rolls since I had this bread dough. So I used my sourdough unloaf recipe that's over on the blog, and it is seriously a magical recipe, and I just made it into rolls. So in the previous video I was just scoring it and then putting it in the oven. And the key to making rolls in the oven that still are crusty is by adding some water and steam to it. So you can spray it with water during the baking process, and that gives it a nice crust. While that was baking, I figured I would do a little decluttering. We have a lot of kids, and so we tend to get toys. We collect toys from birthdays and Christmas and everything else. And you know, they only play with them for such a short period of time, and then they're over them, or they rather just play with the box. And we were having a little bit of issues with cleaning up and just not getting our mess cleaned up, like the kids just dumping toys, which is like a huge pet peeve of mine. And so I decided that that was the day that while my rolls were in the oven baking, I was going to spend 20 minutes going through our toy basket and decluttering, because there's so many things that we don't use, or there's pieces missing from the toys. And so I just went through and I got rid of at least one garbage bag full of toys. I think I might have been able to get through another one. And if you are someone that struggles with tidiness or keeping your house clean, I feel like kid toys is like one of the number one reasons. That and paper, kid paper, craft paper, and those kinds of things are like the number one reason why it's so hard to keep the house clean and organized, because things are always getting out of place or new projects are getting made. And so going through your toys often, or even putting some away for a while and bringing them out again later, has been so helpful just to keep the toy clutter down. Because we have gone through seasons where we have so much toy clutter, and you couldn't even you'd walk in the door after you come home and there would be toys right as soon as you walked in. And so we have kind of implemented some things so that way it's a little bit cleaner. Keep toys in one area or two areas. We have a separate room just for Legos, and that has helped keep the house so much tidier. We also try to do this somewhat frequently where we're going through things. I do feel like as more kids that we've added, it's become a little bit more challenging to go through stuff as often as we used to, but we still try to make it a priority to do it. And during that 20 minutes of my rolls baking, I got to clean up and make the house a little cleaner. It was really nice. One thing with these rolls is that you have to do them a little bit different than, say, you would a normal sourdough loaf. Is I shape them, let them rise for an hour, and then I put them in the oven, at a cold oven at 425 with water at the bottom in like a little baking dish. And then I bake them, I want to say it was about 25 minutes. It may have been a little longer. And then I spritz them with water like halfway through to help create the steam. But just bake them until they are nice golden brown. On this day, it was also a very exciting day because this was the first time we got to pick our asparagus for the season. I love asparagus and I love growing it because it comes back every year. It does take a while when you first start growing it to be able to harvest it. It takes like 2 or 3 years. And we actually started this from seed. Since the asparagus crowns can be kind of expensive, I decided to start it from seed the first year that we moved in. And so now we're getting a handful of asparagus a few times a week, and it's amazing to be able to eat something so delicious right from our garden. So while in the garden, I might as well pick some weeds because the weeds are completely taking over, and it's amazing because I weeded this day and I feel like most of them already came back. I have planted a few other things. I feel a little bit behind. I always feel behind every year. I have planted some lettuce and kale and Swiss chard, but mostly right now we're just kind of in garden ready mode, like trying to weed, trying to take up some of the weed barrier that we put down last year, and we're going to be tilling this week, adding new soil, And just getting it ready for this year's garden, I feel like one of the things I struggle with the most is I want it to be perfect, and just knowing in the season I'm in life that I'm in currently, there's no way for it to be, and I just have to do what I can. I'm always going to be behind. I'm always not going to plant everything that I want to plant, but that's okay. I just start somewhere and I do as much as I can, the best I can with the time that I have, which is pretty limited. One of the new projects that we worked on this year was building this new chicken coop, and I can't remember if I've shown it already or not, but I love this new coop. Our last coop was on the back of our garage, and in order to get the eggs, you had to go inside to get them. You had to put your boots on, all that stuff. And this time we put it on the outside, so we can just open the door from the outside and grab the eggs, and it's super, super easy. Another thing we did with this is we're trying to make it mobile, and so that way we can move the coop around, so then the chickens get fresh grass every day, and this helps put more carbon into the soil, helps the grass grow better and the roots to grow deeper. But it's also supposed to help reduce feed costs up to 30%. So that's another thing that we're trying to do. Will not only make our land better, but also reduce the feed costs, because feeding chickens can be quite expensive. Especially when you're buying like the really high quality food. And so we are trying this out. We actually built a turkey coop kind of similar to this, and so we're going to be doing it with our turkeys as well, to have pasture raised turkeys. While I was out in the garden, I picked a few herbs, and this one is mint, which smells amazing, and it makes me a little bit sad because I went out there today and that mint is dead. I'm hoping it comes back to life, but I don't think it will, but that's okay. I'll have to plant some more. I also picked parsley, which has just been growing for years at this point. I planted it once and it just keeps going. And then in my front little garden, I have oregano and thyme. And so I picked a few of those to dry so I can save it for the rest of the year. And then I wanted to make a little flower arrangement while the tulips still looked beautiful. And I'm so glad I did this, because the next day, deer came through and ate pretty much the rest of my tulips, which was very sad. So I'm glad I did pick some of my favorites so I could enjoy them for over a week. I actually have some tulips that still look amazing, and this video was recorded like 2 weeks ago. I love adding fresh flowers to the house at least once a week. It just adds a little bit more brightness, especially when spring comes and everything is just freshly blooming. It just makes our hearts a little happier with its brightly colored, beautiful bouquets on our table. And one thing I'm really excited about is all the peonies that we should have this year. I planted and transplanted a lot of peonies in the last year or two, and so I'm excited to see what comes up. I had some that were planted, I don't know how many years ago, because they were here when we moved in, and they had never bloomed. So I just randomly transplanted them, and they are growing like crazy. And so I'm hoping to see what they are, if they bloom this year, or what kind they are. Sometimes in the afternoon, I just need a little bit of a pick-me-up. I cannot do coffee past like 1 o'clock, or else I'll be up all night. So I have been making this really nice and light green tea latte. It's not a matcha latte, it's just a green tea latte. And I actually posted this recipe over on the blog. I actually posted this recipe over on blossominglife.com, and it's so simple to make. You just steep the tea, add a little bit of honey, and then froth some milk. You want to use whole milk. It froths so much better. Some people say you can use skim milk, but don't. It just doesn't taste as good. It's just not the same. And so I like to use whole milk, and then you pour it on top. You could also have this ice, and you can make cold foam. You can heat up your milk when you froth it. You can leave it cold, kind of whatever you want to do. But it's really nice and delicious, slightly sweet, and it's just a really great way to kind of get you through nighttime without having too much coffee. So for dinner tonight, I am making that asparagus that we picked earlier that day. And I kind of wanted to do a one pot kind of meal, so I cooked the asparagus first with just a little bit of butter and salt. That's all it needs. And then once it's ready, I almost burned my arm off. And I'm going to take all the asparagus out, and then I started my dinner. So we are having Italian beef, and this is one of my favorite meals. It's so simple, and you only need like a few ingredients. There are different ways to make Italian beef and different things that people consider Italian beef. But I'm from Chicago, and this is how people in Chicago make Italian beef. So it's based off of like Portillo's, if anyone's ever heard of that. It's a really yummy restaurant, and I grew up going there all the time. And so I recreated this at my house because I don't live there anymore and I can't get it. And this is kind of like a healthier version. So all you do is take shaved beef. I can find this at Trader Joe's. I'm sure you can find this at other places. You add Italian seasoning and you cook that together just to kind of brown it. And then you add a can of diced green chilies and some chicken broth. Usually I use homemade broth, but I didn't have any, so I use Better Than Bouillon here, but I like it actually a lot better with regular homemade chicken broth. And since I had some parsley, I added that in, and some salt if you need it, and then you just serve it on the rolls. Like, it literally takes 5 minutes. Since I prepared the rolls earlier, a lot of times I just buy the rolls, I don't even make them, and it turns out so yummy. The key is, though, that you have to serve this with the juice. You can't just put the meat on the bread, you gotta put the juice on the bread too. I do have a recipe over on the blog that I will leave in the description below. I also toasted the buns, only because I have a weird thing with texture in buns. So I like to toast mine, and then I added some cheese to some of the kids before I added the meat, which was a really yummy addition. Served it up with the asparagus, and it was a huge hit. Everyone loved it. Thank you so much for joining us on our day, and make sure to like and subscribe, and find all the recipes below in the description box.